Today on Live Daily News, a San Angelo man was arrested for possessing over 800 lewd images of children. Ryan Renfroe has been sentenced to life in prison, and a high-speed chase ended with a bailout and an arrest yesterday. I'm James Bellini, and this is Live. We'll get to the news in a minute, but first, looking for the best buffalo wings in San Angelo? Head over to the ArcLight Bar and Grill, conveniently located inside the Clarion Hotel at 441 Rio Concho Drive. Their variety of wing flavors is second to none, featuring options like raspberry chipotle, ghost pepper, Nashville hot, sweet heat honey, teriyaki lime, everything rub, and the classic hot wing. Relax and let ArcLight toss your wings to perfection while you enjoy the largest video wall in West Texas, surrounded by 20 additional flat-screen TVs. Pair your meal with one of their daily drink specials for the ultimate dining experience. Visit the ArcLight Bar and Grill located at 441 Rio Concho Drive in downtown San Angelo. And starting things off, the Ryan Renfroe trial has officially come to a close with a life sentence. Renfroe was convicted of the murder of 23-year-old Jakob Jones following a road rage incident that took on a life of its own on Facebook Messenger. On New Year's Eve of this year, Renfroe met up with Jones at the Fat Boss Pub alleyway and shot him just underneath his right eye. The jury returned a verdict on Saturday afternoon after just under 2 hours of deliberation. And shocking details have emerged after Albert Olivara was arrested for possession of child pornography. The National Center for Missing and Exploited Children sent a cyber tip that ended up with Olivara behind bars. Investigators seized a tablet on which Olivara said that child pornography had popped up on his screen and may be saved to the tablet. They found, and I'm quoting from the affidavit here, way more than 800 images containing child pornography saved to that tablet, and then once the investigator reached 800, he stopped counting. 6 of the images were described in the affidavit, and those descriptions are extremely graphic and contain children between the ages of 2 and 5 participating in some of the worst things I have ever read. Have you downloaded the San Angelo Live mobile app yet? It's free and it's the best app in the business. Download it off the Apple App Store or the Google Play Store. Stay up to date with news in San Angelo. And yesterday around 4:20 p.m., a high-speed chase was called over police scanners. A white Buick SUV was traveling at speeds of over 100 miles an hour towards San Angelo on US 67 South. According to the scanners, the San Angelo Police Department was setting up spike strips, but the suspect turned around and was heading back towards Erie County. And then at the county line, the suspect crashed his vehicle and bailed out. A helicopter was reportedly seen in the skies helping DPS. The suspect was caught shortly after on County Road 211. San Angelo Live reached out to the Department of Public Safety Public Information Officer Justin Baker, who told us to contact the Erie County Sheriff's Office, who in turn told us to contact the Department of Public Safety. I think somebody's just too lazy to put out a press release. Into weather, the fall weather returns as the highs and lows are decreasing as we get closer to the end of the year. There's no rain in the forecast at the moment, and right now it's 59 degrees outside with a high of 62 and a low tonight of 34. Tomorrow the high is 68 and the low drops down to 51 on Tuesday night. Then on Wednesday, the high jumps up to 83, then it dips down to 40 that night. And then on Thanksgiving, the high is 56, and it will be partly cloudy that day. When we come back, Tim Condon is in studio, but first, a word from the Bass Bunch.
$59,999 for a new Ford Expedition XLT. Get a full-size 3-row seating SUV for the family that needs a lot of room. Equipped with a moonroof, second-row captain seats, along with many more features, make it the absolute perfect SUV. You can only get deals like this at Jim Bass Ford, Houston Hart and Arden Road, or shop 24/7 at bassbunch.com, or use this QR code. Yep, the one on my shirt.
Well, hello and welcome back to the show. I'm Joe Hyde, the publisher and founder of San Angelo Live. We're gonna take you back in a little bit of history today. When we were first starting San Angelo Live, I met this guy. He's kind of crazy dude. He owned this food trailer that sold hamburgers, and he was really hyper aggressive. And he said he had this dream. He had this dream of this restaurant that had a cactus on it. And I used to think, yeah, and he goes, and we're going to do some really cool things. We're going to square plates, and we're going to stack onion rings up like 10 feet tall and drip honey over them or whatever. He'd come up with these crazy ideas. He'd come with me. But he rode around in a Dodge Ram truck, and in the back of his Dodge Ram truck was this clay cactus. And Tim would show that cactus around, but he primarily used the cactus as a prop when you were making your arguments to the various city agencies trying to get the Angry Cactus open. And I'm going to keep on talking until I let you talk. But one of the things that you went through is you went through hell. I mean, you went to the design and review, the Historic Design and Review Commission like 6 times before you could get there. Every month you'd be up there with your clay cactus making a new argument. And anyway, I kind of took your plight because what it showed was government overreach. I thought it was government overreach of regulatory powers to prevent a guy from opening up a restaurant in what was basically a burned out Army surplus store on the corner of Concho and Chadbourne. I mean, this thing was a blighted building, and there you were. You had this idea. Of course, everyone thought you'd fail. Everyone thought you'd fail. And I remember this. You know, we didn't put it in the written initial story. When I found out Lee Pfluger was involved, I said, "Hey, you know, watch out. That's Lee Pfluger. He might end up owning this restaurant." But you were able to manage that partnership. You managed building something that was truly unique. And anyway, today we're going to celebrate that a little bit because you have published a new book. It's the Angry Cactus Cookbook. And I don't know if y'all can see that up there on the YouTubes. There it is. If you're on the podcast, just go look. We'll do a story on the Angry Cactus Cookbook. But it has a lot of the history of what we went through.
Yeah.
So before I'm going to get you started. Where are you from? And why? You're not even from San Angelo. Tell us a little bit where you came from.
Yeah, so I was born and raised in Omaha, Nebraska. I moved away to Honolulu when I was about 19 years old. Worked in Honolulu for 5 years and then came to San Angelo in 2010 where I opened Lone Star Cheeseburger on the corner of Chadbourne. Or I mean, I guess that would be Abe and Beauregard.
Right there at the Eskimo hut. Mm-hmm. So on the Lone Star Cheeseburger, you didn't have any money. Yeah. You just kind of started that thing on a wing and a prayer.
Yeah, so I moved to San Angelo with $5,000. And good old Don Johnson, I don't know if you remember Don, my old banker from Prosperity Bank at the time. You know, I had this whole business plan, and it was probably, I don't know, like 180 pages long of this idea of a food truck in San Angelo,
and this is like 2009, 2010.
Yeah, 2010.
There weren't any food trucks.
Yeah, so when I was back in Hawaii, I was the executive chef at Paradise Cove, which was a very large, resort in Ko'olina, right next to the Disney resort currently, or that just got built recently. And
where is that in relation to Waikiki Beach?
Oahu. So on Oahu, you've got Waikiki on the right bottom south side,
right,
and then you've got Pearl Harbor kind of in the central middle, and then on the left side of the bottom half of the island, on the west side of the island is where Paradise Cove was, and it's most known for its luau's. So we are the largest luau in Hawaii, and it's just a huge.
So, being an executive chef at a resort, basically, what did you learn about cooking?
Well, the beauty of that is you've got massive events. And when I say massive events, I was the executive chef for the Pro Bowl for 2008 and 2009.
Which is a football game?
Yeah. And, so we had 10,000 people that we did the welcome reception for. And so in order to feed 10,000 people in a matter of a few hours for an event, it takes all hands on deck. But we had about 350 staff members that helped execute that particular event. And so, it'd be a matter of 20 different buffet lines here, 20 different buffet lines over there. We had different things broken out, sky boxes and different things that we had to deal with.
So you had to cater the sky boxes as well as the general public, I guess.
Yeah, at the actual Paradise Cove.
The general ticket people.
Mm-hmm. Right. Yeah, and the whole thing is keep in mind, this is a luau, so it's a dinner and a show. And so, yeah, that's really the biggest part is being able to produce an authentic Hawaiian luau, for 10,000 people and have it, go off flawlessly. And
so you did these kinds of shows /things. So you've kind of taken a little bit what you learned there, that promotion you learned from this Paradise Cove, into what you're doing at the Angry Cactus. 'Cause
Yeah.
you have paella dinners, you have wine tastings, you have all kinds of special. You have Mother's Day dinners, Father's Day dinners.
Well, I think
brunches.
as a chef, it's an expression. And I think that's kind of what the book is about. It's an expression of art, right? And so whether you're putting on a luau for 10,000 people or you're cooking a paella dinner for 24 people, the same level of detail, the same planning,
Right.
all kind of gets done and goes into the whole thing. And I think one cool thing about being a chef is not only are you a chef, but you're an artist. Your medium is through food or through the way you put your sauces on a plate or just kind of the
Or if you use
composition of the
or you use
ingredients.
square plates versus
Exactly.
round plates, and you stack the onion rings 10 feet high and drip honey over it.
There you go, exactly.
You don't really do that. I mean, these are just crazy ideas that you were giving me back in the day. So you had $5,000. You went in with a 180-page business plan on a freaking food truck.
Yeah.
Into Prosperity Bank, which is not really known for a bank that's a local bank.
Yeah, so the funny part is I had really good credit, but I didn't have any money, right? And so, $5,000 isn't enough. But I needed a $30,000 loan to kind of to build my first food truck, right? And that was the one, of course, back in the day that burned down.
Right, right.
But
We'll get to that in a minute.
So, I moved to San Angelo. I had this dream. I had this business plan. And then Don told me, he's like, oh, well, you're going to need to go find a job in San Angelo before we can write this as collateral because I needed some sort of income, right? And I told him, I said, well, you realize that I'm going to quit that job right away because my full-time job is going to be my business. I'm not going to, kind of
Right.
just do it halfway, right? And so I went and got a job at Verizon as the executive chef here at the high rise.
Right.
And back when they had a
Verizon
cafeteria
people there.
back in there.
Right.
And the Verizon people were there.
Right.
So I worked for 4 months, got enough paycheck stubs, and went to the bank and said, hey, look, I got a job. I'm making X amount of money. Can you write me the loan? He said, sure. So I went and put my 1 month notice in at Verizon. I said, all right, I'm moving on. I'm opening a business.
So you just quit a bunch of income and you just took on, I guess, debt, probably tens of thousands of dollars.
$30,000.
$30,000 to build this food truck. What if the food truck didn't work?
Well, I think that's just part of what you have to have. That's just the mentality of being an entrepreneur, right? And I think what I tell all the people that I work with and that work for me is that you really have to focus on being really good at something before you can really open a business in that way. And so what I had to do is really focus on becoming a great chef. And what does that mean? It doesn't mean just cooking good tasting food. That's a very small piece of the puzzle. It's about being able to do the math, being able to calculate the equations of product cost. We were just talking about that a little bit earlier today. The key to running a business.
Your labor costs, your food costs. If you're doing alcohol and beer, you got to figure out your beer costs, and those all come down to percentages. And you got to weigh. I'll give up a little bit here, but I'll make it up in liquor.
Yeah, well, one of the interview questions I ask anyone who gets hired at Angry Cactus, if you want to be a manager, my number one question is, what is the product cost formula? And anyone who's out there, just if you want to run a business, this is the number one formula. It's opening inventory plus purchases minus closing inventory divided by sales. And if you know that math equation, you can run any restaurant. And so I think that's really what makes you a chef. And that's what differentiates you between a cook and a chef, is being able to manage the financial aspect of making money as a person who's selling food as a product.
Okay, so you quit your job at Verizon, and you got the $30,000 hickey on you. You owed it to them.
Yeah.
And I guess you probably had to start paying almost right away.
Yeah.
And so you went and bought this trailer, and was it new, or did you buy a used one?
It was brand new. I actually made it and constructed it in my front yard.
Oh, really?
Literally in the driveway. And the beauty...
I'm sure the code compliance people probably loved you.
Well, back in the day, there was really no authority that was kind of managing these things. Keep in mind that the day that we got our food permit, there were 3 food trucks that got the first 3 food trucks in San Angelo. We all got our food permits on the same day. That was me at Lone Star Cheeseburger, Carlos at the Kona Ice,
Right.
and then Mark from Bada Bing Pizza. We all just happened to
Apply at the same time.
coincidentally apply on the same exact day, and it was such an just big coincidence.
Right. So you had a pretty good location. You had a high traffic location.
Well, that's that's also what's kind of interesting. So my whole goal was never to be in San Angelo. My whole goal was to open this food truck on the base. And so my absolute goal of the reason for opening a food truck is I was planning on only being in San Angelo for a few years.
Right.
Because, my daughter's mom was in the Air Force, and so I knew we were going to be moving, and I didn't really want to put down any brick and mortar roots, and I thought a food truck would be kind of the best way.
So the food truck wasn't just to save money, but it was to be mobile.
Yeah, exactly. And so we wanted to put it,
which is ironic. But anyway, keep going.
The day that we were planning on opening Lone Star Cheeseburger on base was the day Osama bin Laden got killed.
Okay.
And so the base went on lockdown, and I was like, oh my gosh, all this planning that I went into, all this, I'm a very particular planner. I'm very organized. I know exactly what I want to do, how I want to do it, how I want to execute.
So this is
plan.
In 2011. This is I can't remember the exact date of Osama bin Laden, but
May 1st.
It was May 1st. Okay. So May 1st, 2011. You're set up on base, ready to make money.
I wasn't on base. We were about to take the food truck to the base.
Oh, to the base. So what happened?
And then it went on lockdown, and I was, oh my gosh, where are we going to go? So we decided.
And so you considered a dependent, I guess.
What's that?
A dependent from the base, so you could get. Do you have an ID card or anything, or?
Yeah, well, we had a vendor license. We had all the things through AFES that you needed,
gotcha.
and so on and so forth. But they wouldn't let us on because they went on lockdown, and
right.
It was definitely some uncertain times from a military's perspective.
Right.
So we decided to go park up at the old Blockbuster across from the old HEB.
Okay.
And we were there for 6 months, and we did really well. But we were still kind of, struggling. Any brand new business kind of struggles,
right.
Whether it be the management of it, the staffing of it, the training.
And everyone thinks that when you open a business, it's so busy. The first 3 months of a restaurant is, you have a line. I remember they opened a Wendy's in Del Rio one time, the first Wendy's ever. For 3 months, there was a line. That started on the street that would go through the drive-thru. And you think, that guy's making a fortune, right? But they're not really.
Yeah, it's all about the margin. I mean, you don't really make a lot of money in the restaurant industry. It's not something that you're going to become rich on, you know. But it sure is fun. And when it's your passion, you really don't work a day in your life. You know what I mean? And so that's kind of how I approach that.
So you're over there at Blockbuster, crossing the old HEB. How did you get this deal where you could be on Bryant? Bryant has the most true traffic.
So I really wanted that deal. I tried so hard. We spent the first 6 months, at the old Blockbuster, and then the base finally called us and said, "Oh, you can go ahead and come on base." Well, we went on base, and everything worked out pretty well. But then my generator broke, and of course, a brand new business. I didn't have a lot of money, and I realized if I invest in a new generator, I need to figure out something, because if it breaks again, that's going to be a problem.
Right.
And my biggest
generator's what, $1,500 or something?
Well, the one that we had was much more expensive than that. I think it was closer at that. This is 10 years ago, but it was like $5 or $6 grand. For
$5 or $6 grand. That's a big expense for a small little.
Yeah, because we're pretty big.
Because you're not even selling liquor. You're just selling hamburgers and drinks. Or hamburgers and Cokes.
Yeah, and so that's kind of the progression of the business. And then I knew, well, the key is I don't need to be relying on this generator anymore. I need to be plugging into a building and let the people come to me. My flaw in my business model at the beginning was I was chasing the customer. And I think a lot of food trucks have that problem today. When you chase the customer, unless you're designed for it, say like a Kona Ices or a Tom's Coffee, when you chase the customer, you become inefficient when it comes to making money, because you'd rather have the customer come to you, so you can set up at a consistent time, execute at a consistent time, have everything kind of be at a consistent place and time.
Because if they went over to Blockbuster after you moved on base, you're no longer there. You've lost that customer
exactly,
base.
And they're chasing you, and it doesn't really work out.
If they could get on base at all, in that situation. So anyway, you're on base, and did you make a deal with the Eskimo Joe guy?
Yeah, so we made a deal with the Eskimo Hut, and I was like, all right, cool. And we did a news story with the paper at the time. I think this was even before San Angelo Live was around. And so, we started getting a lot of traction, and then it just went up from there. We really got our stability. We really became located in one location.
And you didn't have to buy a $5,000 generator.
No, yeah, exactly. We were able to plug in just like an RV would and so on and so forth. And everything was going fantastic. And we were about to open and kind of start working on Angry Cactus. And then in 2014, Lone Star Cheeseburger burned down on Valentine's Day.
Big old fire. And there's a story on San Angelo Live about it. Just look for Lone Star Cheeseburger, all one word, Lone Star, fire. You can search for it and you'll find that story.
Exactly.
Because we were there.
You were there. San Angelo Live was a thing at that time.
Yeah.
And I'll never forget, I was catering diamonds and champagne, or champagnes and diamonds, at the Cactus Hotel. And I got the call, the trailer's on fire, the trailer's on fire. So I got in my Dodge truck that you were talking about, wrapped up in my old back in the day.
Wrapped in the Lone Star Cheeseburger. Did you have the clay cactus in the back?
Not at that time. Arrived on scene and the thing was totally torched. It was absolutely.
How did the fire start?
It was a grease fire, and that goes to, we were just not built at that time for the volume that we were doing out of that little trailer. And so luckily we had insurance and we built a brand new trailer. And then, we continued to operate for an additional 10 years. I think we operated totally for about 14 years, from 2010 to, I just sold it in January 1st of this year. So 14 years we operated.
At that same corner. You had that stability and everything from the Lone Star Cheeseburger. And we used to have the cheeseburger eating contests and everything. I mean, it was kind of a fun place. Yeah.
Well, and then really my whole goal as a chef is really to kind of stake my own identity, right? And so I think that's kind of where Angry Cactus comes in.
Okay, well let's get there in a second. Okay. So while you're dealing with the Lone Star Cheeseburger and it's cash flowing, so you're doing pretty good with it by this time, and you got a little confidence, and so you came up with this plan for the Angry Cactus. How did you choose the location?
Well, we were looking at a variety of different places, but really what I wanted to do is just find the perfect spot. And so we looked around, and the moment that I found the spot where we were, a friend of mine, Mark Stevenson, told me about this little building downtown.
And he's a banker too, right? Okay.
Told me about this little building downtown, and he's like, just go look in the little hole in the wall. You should see it. And the moment I looked in that hole in the wall and I saw the old stone and all the brick in the back and everything, I just knew instantly. I was like, that's where it's going to be.
And a little bit of history about the building you're in. It's actually one of the original buildings in San Angelo. It's built in the 1890s, and it was a wool warehouse. And so people would come through the back, which is on where the Concho River, it faces the Concho River. They come up
south side.
Come up the hill from the river, I guess, because they didn't have bridges. They didn't have like the Chatham Street Bridge back then. They come up the thing with a mule with stacked high with I guess the mohair.
Yeah.
And they go into a basement, right? And that's where they would unload it into this basement, and then somehow they would do whatever they do with mohair, and they ship it out of the top where the restaurant is. But the interesting thing about that building is there's a couple things. I'm going to tell you two things that I've learned along the way. That brick wall along the back, it's kind of like a limestone brick.
Yeah.
It is absolutely the most gorgeous architectural, historic thing you could ever have. It's just beautiful. So you need to go, if you haven't been to the Angry Cactus, look at the back wall, the south wall of the restaurant, and you'll see that beautiful brick that's from the 1890s. The second thing is it was a burned out Army Navy surplus store, and you have the story in the book.
Yeah.
You have the story about how in 1986 it was Cole's Army surplus, and it burned down. And I went when I wrote that story, it was in the book. I went and talked to the guys at Cole's, and they said, yeah, I snuck by the fire department, ran in there into the office, and grabbed the cash.
Oh, nice.
And grabbed the back then you didn't have computers.
Yeah.
He grabbed the notebook for accounting. He grabbed all the stuff he could, and got yelled at by the fire department. But I got my cash out. But ever since then, that building had sat there blighted. I mean, you couldn't think of anything. I mean, if you looked at it, you said they just need to tear that dang thing down. But they never, like you said, they never saw that wall in the back, which is a very important part of the historic stuff. I'll tell you a second thing. When you were breaking the ground on building that, of course, Lee Pfluger was a big part. He owned the building, and he also financed the build-out.
Still does, yeah.
And anyway, I talked to Lee. I said, Lee, why do you spend all this money rehabilitating this stuff? And he goes, and he basically said, I could have torn it down and built it for 10 cents on the dollar, and that's the honest to God truth. He's saying, but I care. He just said, I care. I want to keep this part of history. So that I thought was it really stuck with me how Lee was passionate about, I want to make this something. I want to build it out of something old into something new, as opposed to tearing down all the old stuff, clearing it out, and building something new. So anyway, I'm just giving my little.
Well, and that's really kind of the blueprint of what Angry Cactus as a concept is. What's old is new again. And I think all of the food that we produce at Angry Cactus has that in mind. It's not only as a chef through my eyes, the different dishes and the different ingredients that I take from maybe, I've got a little Hawaiian influence here and there. I've got a little bit of Nebraska.
You mean you got some pineapples?
No, well, we use a couple different Asian sauces in some things. And of course, I use a lot of French technique. My culinary background is I'm a French trained culinary chef, so it's all French techniques in the kitchen dominantly. But we pick a little things from the Asian or the Pacific Rim style. Take a little bit from Nebraska. I use corn husks, and I use corn often. I'm a big corn fan, corn husker all the way. And so really but what's old is new again. So all of our food, in a general sense, is old school favorites kind of redefined through my eyes. And so if you look at our best sellers, like the meatloaf, we're known for our meatloaf. It's an old school dish, meatloaf. It's as old
from
school
the
as
Depression.
you get. Yeah,
from the
exactly.
Depression,
But it's completely redone.
But why did they create meatloaf? I mean, it's not that good.
Oh, have you had ours?
I mean, I know you make it good, but I'm saying, why did they create meatloaf?
I mean, it just depends on how you make it, I guess.
No, back in the Depression, they didn't have any money to buy the meat.
Yeah.
So they just mixed grains with it.
Yeah.
That's why we have meatloaf today. It was a Depression era, trying to get people their carbs.
Yeah, yeah.
Back when you couldn't afford it. Just
well, I'm sure they probably used organ meat and all different other kinds of things back then too. Yeah.
The stuff that's not good meat.
Yeah.
And so they had to cover it up with ketchup.
There you go. See, and that's a perfect example. We do a barbecue sauce that has a little Asian influence in it with some soy sauce and some sweet chili sauce.
So you create your own barbecue sauce. You're not buying, sweet baby ribs or whatever off the truck.
We're 100% from scratch kitchen, so we make everything. Yeah.
Right. Okay. And so let's go back. I'm sorry. This is going to be a podcast, so we're going to make it long.
All right.
So you're there with the trailer. You got and now you have this idea for the Angry Cactus. I guess, did you create a 180-page business plan for it?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
And then you were inspired by the name Angry Cactus. That was a big part of it.
Yeah, well, I didn't really know what I wanted to call it, but I know I wanted to have a little edge. I wanted it to kind of represent what West Texas was all about, and and this is a tough area of the country, and it's rugged, and it's got cactus, and and I really wanted to make sure that it kind of just had an identity of downtown San Angelo as well. And so I just kind of stumbled on the idea and the concept of Angry Cactus. And I thought, that's a catchy name. It's unique. I've never heard of that before. I've never heard of that concept of just Angry Cactus, those two words together. And I thought it was something that was interesting. It represented kind of what West Texas is, which is a rugged, prickly, cactus. The mesquite, the food of West Texas, the culture of West Texas, and that's kind of what I tried to kind of capture in the name.
In the original drawings for the Angry Cactus restaurant, after you kind of made the deal, and this is the fun. I'll give you a little funny story for you guys. I used to always say, watch out for that Lee Pfluger. He's going to get you. He goes, yeah, I call him the principal. And so every time you had to go talk to Lee Pfluger, you had to go to the principal's office.
That is true.
And so when I had to go talk to Lee Pfluger, I said, hey, man, I was just up there seeing the principal. I was up there in the principal's office. We used to always joke about that all the time. So but anyway, you had this conceptual drawing of this burned out Army-Navy surplus store, and you had this gigantic cactus on top staring down, and you said, I'm going to put laser beams in its eyes and all this kind of stuff. But anyway, you had this conceptual drawing, and you started shopping it. So tell me about how you came up with that and what the reaction you got with.
Well, one of the jobs I used to have back in the day is I used to be a chef for Carrabba's. And so Carrabba's has, on most of their stores back in the 2000s, they had kind of like some plants and trees and things kind of up on the top.
On the roof.
Yeah, kind of like Angry Cactus has today. And so when I thought, I've taken a little bit of influence from everything I've done throughout my career and kind of tried to perfect it in this one concept, Angry Cactus. Right. And so I wanted to have some landscaping. I wanted it to, it's right there on the corner. The biggest thing, though, is I really wanted it to be a landmark. I believe in the concept of make it big. I believe in everything's bigger in Texas. I believe in that whole concept. I know it's true. And so I really wanted to make Angry Cactus just stick out in some sort of way.
Right.
And I didn't really know what that looked like. And, having to go through the process of planning and having to kind of get these ideas from your head that are kind of in the clouds on paper, I had to just make some decisions. And so one day I just drew a giant cactus and I said, that's what it's going to be.
And you put it on the roof, like the very top of the roof.
Exactly. And then I didn't have any plans on making it what it looks like today in any way. I just wanted to have kind of something there. And then they absolutely hated it. And then that's when I realized that's what we're going to do.
We'll get into that.
Okay.
So you had this cactus drawing, and then you went and hired someone to make a clay mock-up of the cactus.
Yes, yeah.
So I want the cactus to look like this. Mm-hmm. And this mock-up, and if you can see, it was probably, about 3 feet tall?
Yeah, yeah.
3 feet tall clay. You can actually see it today, right? You have it in the entryway?
Mm-hmm. It's actually metal.
It's metal?
There was a clay one before that was only about this tall.
Okay, but the metal one's what I saw. And you had that in the back of your Dodge Ram pickup truck. And you drive around town with your Angry Cactus, and I thought you were the craziest hamburger guy in the world. But anyway, so in order to get a new business open in San Angelo, you have to go through a lot of red tape.
Absolutely.
You have to go through the city planning to get the ordinance. You make sure that you're commercial. You got to get your licenses, your permits to build, things like that. But the biggest problem you had was the downtown San Angelo, was it Historic Review Commission?
Yeah, DHRC.
DHRC. So this is a committee of, I guess I'm going to call them the old fogies, the old guard, the good old boys, and they want to define how downtown San Angelo looks into the future. And so they review, if you're in this downtown district, and if you're not from San Angelo, our downtown district, when you compare it to other cities like Bernie or somewhere like that, it's gigantic. I mean, the square footage or the square mileage of our downtown is a very large downtown, which makes it a challenge for the downtown planners for revitalization, because one of the biggest problems we have is we need to make our downtown a 24-hour downtown. Okay, we need people living downtown. We need grocery stores downtown, and we don't have that yet. I guess we have Highland down there on South South Chadbourne, but those are the things those things are hard to do when your square mileage is so large. And anyway, I digress a little bit. So you had to go to this downtown historic design review committee, and they had to approve your cactus concept. So you show up there with your little clay or your metal cactus, your little 3-foot cactus, and you're drawing. I'm gonna put a really big one on top of this burned out Army Navy surplus store. What was their initial reaction?
So I wasn't expecting much. I just thought, they kind of wanted to have a sketch of what I was doing, and so I just kind of made a sketch. But once I got kind of so much opposition,
describe the opposition.
Just everyone, nobody really liked it.
That's no one on the design review, historic commission. Yeah. How you doing, guys?
Yeah, and I thought to myself, well, I don't really care. Yeah. And so that's kind of
that probably emboldened you, because you're a little bit of a maverick.
Well, and I think when you put your heart and soul into something, it's not like we don't do things like without certain creative elements at play.
Right.
But everything is very much not just thrown at the wall. It's very thought through, except for this one piece. And it kind of just took on a life of its own at that point. Everyone had an opinion on what they should do, and I listened a little bit, and I didn't like anyone else's ideas.
And they all wanted to make it smaller.
Yeah. The size was the major problem, and so as we went through, there were some words being tossed around, and and it just kind of absolutely took a life of its own.
But you went month after month after month, getting turned down. They kept telling you, do this, do that, and you would do that, right?
Yeah.
And you come back, and finally, I think you're at the 6th meeting, and the chairperson in charge of the Downtown Historic Review Committee or Commission was a woman by the name of Ashley Young Turner. And she had just opened up the Concho Pearl down in South Chadbourne. I guess today it's a Mexican food restaurant. But she was having a little traction down there. So she would be a competitor for your clientele, right?
You could say
and she was the chairperson of this committee. And she after they're going through this whole thing, you already reduced the size of it. You made it happier. Remember they said it was too angry?
Yes, yes.
So you had to make it a happier
Yes.
cactus, and I think you'd already knocked it down. You put it on that ledge over the wall, over the door where it is today.
Yeah.
You take it off the roof and put it on the ledge on the door. And she said, "Well, I still don't like that cactus. It looks like a phallic, a phallic." And when she used that word, and we took it, it was. I said, "Man, you just made my news budget for the week."
Yeah.
You know. And I think that really changed a lot. And what we did was we created T-shirts. Remember those green T-shirts?
Oh, I do.
And we had the original Angry Cactus logo sticking out of your pants on the front. On the back it said, "Leave my Angry Cactus alone."
Yeah, yeah.
And we sold, I don't know,
500 of
those shirts.
500 shirts.
I mean, it became kind of like, conservative politics says, we want government to stay out of, or libertarian politics, we want government to stay out of private business.
Yeah.
And it became that kind of thing. People in West Texas are generally, even though they consider themselves Republican or conservatives, they have a very strong libertarian streak.
Mm-hmm.
What I do on my 40 acres, let me do. I won't bother you with what you're doing in your 40 acres. And so they looked at this like government was really overreaching here, trying to define how that cactus is going to look and saying it looks like a penis and that kind of thing.
Yeah, yeah.
The other piece of it was they had just approved putting this old rusty pickup truck on top of the twisted root, which is right next door, right behind you.
In the same original meeting.
Oh, yeah.
The first meeting that we had.
If they can put a rusty pickup truck on top of a building, why can't you put a plastic cactus up there?
Yeah.
On the next building. And the last thing I'll say, I was an architecture student at Texas A&M, and I mean the cactus is not non-historical. I mean, back in the 50s, you had buildings that had a big old cup of coffee pouring fake coffee out. You had those types of kind of cartoonish type icons,
like Randy's Donuts in L.A.
Yes.
Or all these different places.
Yeah, so it wasn't really out of the realm. And the last I'll say, we had Grinners at the time. Remember, Grinners now is the 1933 bar, but that if you look at that big old cat, neon sign, that would look pretty cartoonish too. Mm-hmm. It didn't look like a phallic, but it was cartoonish.
Well, really, when it kind of took on its own personality, it kind of developed into its own thing. And what I really wanted to accomplish was it becoming a landmark, and I think we've really done a good job of having that.
You got the good help with the way it was with the controversy around it, and it really shouldn't have been a controversy, but very fortunate it was.
Well, and the funny part too is, if you just drive by, you don't really understand what Angry Cactus is until you get through the front door. It's got a completely different personality once you walk inside. And I think that's really important because it really produces a different experience than if you kind of know what you're going to expect from the outside. And I think it's another quirk. It's another kind of piece of the puzzle that really makes Angry Cactus, vibe and be a concept that's alive and breathing. And I think that's kind of what the whole goal of this idea is to kind of be able to have a place that I can call my own, that I can express myself through food, through events, and through different things that we do. And I think that's kind of what Angry Cactus is really kind of there for, is to provide that,
All right, so you get it approved, and you open up, and everyone has, there's a lot of excitement, and I'm sure you were probably packed for the first 3 months, just like all restaurants were. What were some of the early lessons you learned?
Yeah, so really, every different concept has kind of a new set of lessons. For Angry Cactus, I really had to learn, I think one of the funniest parts is I really had an idea of exactly what I wanted. And one of the things that I always said is I'm going to refuse to serve cheeseburgers at Angry Cactus. That's what I said originally. So on our first menu, we had no cheeseburgers. We had slightly a different menu. And I wanted to have a certain identity. But then at the same time, I started listening to the people. And everyone was like, I need a burger. I need this. I need that. And so I kind of morphed it into a little mix of what the market wanted. But really, I wanted to keep my identity front and center. And so that's kind of why I made some executive decisions on certain items of the menu, and then in other ways I kind of.
But you added you added cheeseburgers.
Yeah, I finally added cheeseburgers, but a really good one. Our Angry Cheeseburger, one of the best burgers I've ever had. We take this is kind of another one of those dishes that has my personality on a plate. We do fried capricola. We call it pig candy. and and we've got bacon and jalapenos and fried onions and our house mayonnaise. But it's kind of the capricola is an Italian spicy meat. And so I've got an Italian heritage. And so, that's kind of a small piece of what we're trying to offer. Same thing with our chicken fried steak or our chicken fried chicken. They're old school West Texas favorites, but done in a different way, on a rectangular plate with 3 mini chicken fried steaks. And so it's taking West Texas cuisine like mac and cheese, chicken fried steak, meatloaf, a Cajun chicken pasta, steaks, wild game, quail. We sell nilgai antelope. And I want to elevate that. And I think that's kind of what the book is all about, is taking those different things that we have in West Texas, like barbecue and wild game, and showing how you can elevate that. Because West Texas geographically is half the state.
We can't go away from the menu without mentioning the most expensive thing on your menu, which is lamb.
Yeah.
Isn't it pretty expensive?
It can be,
but
yeah.
it's worth it. I mean,
Yeah.
it is a special treat. Your lamb dish is a special treat.
So no one had lamb when we first opened Angry Cactus. I think maybe Peasant Village did, but no one really. And I was just blown away because to me as a chef, lamb was always one of my favorite proteins of all time. And the key to cooking lamb is you got to cook it properly. You got to sear off all the fat. It's a very fatty meat, but if you properly cook it, it's fantastic. And we sell a ton of it at the Angry Cactus. But the beauty of it is, we are the wool and mohair capital of the world. And so, we've got lamb and sheep and even goats and things of that nature. So
in the pasture.
Yeah, in the pasture. And so why not make that front and center? And I think at Angry Cactus, we're about 6 to 8% sustainable right now with, we grow all of our own rosemary. Where
do you grow it, in the back?
Well, we've got some in the back, but we use Dr. Dunham's farm, so he produces all of our herbs like rosemary.
Who's Dr.
thyme.
Dunham?
Dr. Greg Dunham. He has a ranch on the east side of San Angelo that we use.
Yeah.
And then of course, we have we're getting chicken eggs from local farmers. We've got honey that is locally sourced. We make all of our hot sauces, our jams, our jellies. That are locally sourced and you can buy at Angry Cactus. We've got seasonings that we make ourselves. All of these different items that we put on our Bloody Mary mix, all of that is local and locally made. And so, we're really trying to kind of increase every year our sustainability. And the next phase will be things like incorporating, potentially like cabrito on the menu or something like that. We just added nilgai antelope.
Which is child goat.
Yeah, and it's delicious, by the way.
It is. When you go to Mexico, my favorite place in Acuna used to be La Macarena.
Okay.
And they had the cabrito.
Nice.
It was the most wonderful dish. They're in Mexico. It was around the border town there, but of course you can't go on the border anymore without getting kidnapped.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
But anyway, so now you have today. It's hot off the press. The Angry Cactus cookbook, but it's more than just a cookbook. I mean, kind of explain what your inspiration was behind this book.
Yeah, so basically, for me, like I said, as a chef, you're kind of at this intersection between art and a product, right? And so not only do I cook, but I have this constant obsession to kind of self-express, right? And I love to paint, so I do most of the paintings at Angry Cactus are done by me.
Are you serious?
Mm-hmm. So I do a lot of painting.
So you throw a lot of paint on the wall,
yeah,
and call it art.
Exactly. I mean, I love abstract stuff,
Well, you were doing nude art the other day. Last time we interviewed, you were doing nude art.
Yeah. So I love spray paint. You were
just looking for a new girlfriend, weren't you?
There you go. I used to do a lot of spray paint, graffiti when I was a kid growing up, and so I kind of just used that medium and that kind of style and kind of did a little acrylic mixed with some spray paint. But it's just another way to kind of like create and kind of create a situation where you can control kind of an idea.
Right.
And, that's what painting does for me. And so we've got a lot of local art in the book, a lot of local artists, a lot of the downtown, Julie Raymond did a really awesome job with all these different projects
and
she has
she's
going
with
on.
Art in Uncommon Places where they're putting these statues and I guess sculptures and paintings and everything on at random places throughout town. And it's all a nonprofit and you can donate to her and everything, but it's Julie Julie Raymond does all that. Anyway.
Yeah, and it's all throughout downtown. And so we really wanted to capture kind of the art culture of San Angelo, not only the restaurant culture of Angry Cactus, but the art culture of San Angelo and West Texas in a broader range.
Right.
So, and that's through the art, that's through the stories in the book, that's through the history, that is through the recipes.
In this book, you have recipes, but it's interspersed mostly with stories and pictures of art, and you kind of explain what this why this matters.
Yeah, and because, you know, for me, a restaurant is not about putting food on a plate. You know, everybody does that.
Right.
I think the modern version of a restaurant is a self-expression from a chef. And I think that's what you don't get in the corporate world. And that's what
You don't get that from like
Chili's or Applebee's. Yeah. But that is what an independent restaurant can do.
Right.
And so I really take that task at hand, both from an operational perspective at Angry Cactus in our four walls, but also through this book, and really kind of explaining kind of why I see things the way I see them. You know, there's all these different topics about West Texas cuisine.
One of the interesting stories in here is one I wrote. About now, you know, I remember we mentioned that the Angry Cactus was this burned out Kohl's Army Navy surplus store that had been sitting there vacant since 1986. But someone had come in there and they painted these paintings on the outside of it, trying to make it look better. And on where the front doors are, it was padlocked. I remember this. And you had a picture of Pancho Villa running out of the doors. And you actually have that above the bar.
Yeah.
You can go in there and you see the original doors above the bar with Pancho Villa on it. So that's not that actually. Did you ever find out who the artist was and all that?
Yeah, I think you have it in your story.
Did I put it in there?
Yeah.
I wrote the thing. It
was a while ago.
Like 5 or 6 years ago.
6 years ago, yeah.
Yeah. But the Pancho Villa story is interesting because it kind of tells the story of the building too.
Well, yeah, and it goes back to that concept: what is old is new again. You know,
Right.
and I think that's kind of the theme that seems to repeat itself throughout Angry Cactus. Is what's old is new again. You know, even from the woodwork on the bar, you know, that's all old wood from the old the supermarket down there on I think it's Twig and I'm not sure what street that is. Irving, yeah. I mean, I'm looking at it right over here on the downtown line.
Looking out our window here.
I know, right? So, you know, what is old is new again, even the recycled copper at the bar and different things like that. And so, you know, I think that's important to kind of have a little history tied in with every little aspect. And I think the details are what make Angry Cactus so unique. There's a little detail here and there from the blue tree, you know, there's a story about the blue tree.
Yeah, you have a blue tree inside that's lit up, I think.
Yeah, exactly. It's got its own story. I mean, just all kinds of different things.
The book is The Angry Cactus Cookbook. It is a regional look at West Texas cuisine by Chef Timothy W. Timothy W. Condon.
Exactly.
Chef Timothy. Yeah. Anyway, Tim Condon's been a great friend of ours for 10 years now, maybe 12 years. I don't know how long it's been, but we've been passing ideas back and forth that long, and I certainly appreciate your friendship and appreciate what you've done. I mean, you wrote a book.
Yeah, I can't believe it.
You can't believe it. You wrote a book. You can get it, I guess, in the restaurant?
Yeah, so we have it on the shelf at the restaurant. It's $49. And then it'll be available on Amazon starting in January, and we'll have a whole release and all that good stuff. But it came in today. It's hot off the press. I wanted to call you
warm.
first.
I mean, I'm feeling it.
Freshly baked right out the oven.
Anyway, Tim, thank you for coming on San Angelo Live today, and thanks for telling your story.
Absolutely.
And don't forget to get you a copy of the book. I'm actually going to get you to sign mine.
I will.
Will you sign it?
Sure will.
All right. Well, now back to you guys in the studio.
It's hard to believe how reckless some people can be and how hard they fight against real victims. You need a partner who consistently beats the giants and who will never, ever flinch.
When it comes to unique pieces you can't find anywhere else, Conno's Diamonds and Coins is your one-stop shop. With over 24 years in the diamond and coin industry, Conno's Diamonds and Coins is West Texas's choice for diamonds, jewelry, coins, silver, and gold. Owner Bill Conno stands by his work and offers free consultations including estate jewelry, Don't just trust anyone with your valuables. Come see the staff at Condos at 1016 West Beauregard in San Angelo.
Thank you for watching the Live Daily News Show, the only locally owned news show in the Concho Valley. Go like us on Facebook, X, and other social media platforms, and download the San Angelo Live mobile app to stay up to date with news from in and around the Concho Valley. Thanks again, and we'll see you back here tomorrow.